It's a heat wave again, and I'm dying, and I have to make a video. So I think I'm just gonna go outside in the shade somewhere, and we're gonna do some sort of urban sketching. Let's see what I can figure out. So I guess I'm somewhat of a shy YouTuber because I'm trying to find a place where there's not too many people. I just feel weird about talking to a camera while there's people around. And down that area actually is our swimming spot, which would be actually great, but there's a whole bunch of people in this heat. And as you can see, I have some of the energy back now that we're outside. But yeah, let me find a good spot. All right, I think I'll stay here. Not the smartest. So here was my thinking. I'll go where there's shade and water because it's colder. But of course, everybody thinks the same way. Everybody wants to swim. So most of the areas I was thinking of are full of people. But I found this area in front of some living quarters where I hope people are not home. Otherwise, it's gonna be weird if I'm standing in front of their house and filming myself. But there's a boat here and there's some buildings in the background. I'll try and make the best of this location here. It's just too hot to cycle into the city or to cycle somewhere further away for nice things. So I have a mixed media sketchbook with me. I have my watercolors, travel watercolors, all my pens, and this little tripod. And hopefully that will help me capture everything. Most important that you should also take with you, especially on hot days like this, is fresh water. Guess what I forgot to bring with me? So yeah, it's not gonna be a super long one because I already feel the thirst, and usually fresh water is also good to fill up your brush pens if you have those with you. So silly me, very, very silly me. Okay, I think you saw my face enough. From now on, we're looking at the paper. I'm gonna try to capture some of that area, and what I do when I do sketching like this, I tend to take maybe that and bring a little bit closer, or maybe even overlay it just to make the drawing more interesting. So I might take some elements of the foliage and trees from there because they're pretty cool trees there, and blend them closer. I probably don't care about anything there, but this building combined with those, and then maybe some of those things there. I think that's gonna be good. All right, so let's look at these buildings. Let's start with where the water is. Let's say the water is somewhere here. So that's the water, and then we have some foliage here. And I'm not putting too much effort into the foliage. I'm just putting it. It might be a bit too big, but it's fine. It's fine for now. And then this is the height of the bank here. As you can see, I work a little bit with like touch and go lines. I don't touch them too hard. What usually happens where you have the hard edge of the water and the land, it's a little bit darker. So what I do is I switch to a fine liner that is thicker. The thickness of these pens is really arbitrary, so it's up to you guys, whatever you like, how thick you like it or how thin you like it. And then I'm just gonna start drawing my house, well, building in this case. I could go higher, but I can also incorporate maybe the crane. If you look at somebody like House Sketcher, he has a very organic, cool style, which I am a bit jealous of because I can't really do that, and it just doesn't feel natural when I do something like that. So, and I try it every now and then, but I just end up, I don't like it that much. It feels forced. It feels that, okay, this is not your natural thing. So I just try to stick with my lines. I still keep it a little bit sketchier, because with urban sketching I find it to be a bit more fun if your lines are a bit sketchier. So I'm doing that. The crane comes much higher, but I am just going to cap it here because not everything needs to be precisely okay. And what I am going to do, so now a boat is crossing here, so I'm just gonna look at the boat and just put it in here while it's crossing. And we have two people on it and one over there, and then we have a nice little thing like this. And so what I'm doing here, the boat was going on and changing, of course, perspective and changing angles, but I was trying to, every time I look at it, just memorize a couple of details. So at one time, okay, this person is here. Next time I quickly look up, that person is there. Then I look up, there was a bar here that I found looked very cool. So at that bar, it had a bit like this. I was looking also at waves, and then look by look, I sort of put together. It is not perfect, but I don't care about it being perfect. And it wasn't here, it was started going there, but then I looked at the picture and I was like, okay, where would it look a little bit interesting? We're going to have a big building here, especially if I bring in a tree here as well. There's going to be a lot of information. I want it to be counterbalanced here because the buildings here are going to be smaller and less interesting. So those are sort of the decisions that go through my head. Actually, I shouldn't do this. So this is when you come closer to the camera, and in this case us, and you have especially also more movement because of this boat that's here. But the further away you go, the not straight but calmer the water surface seems. Another thing with urban sketching, especially in this heat, I'm somewhat of a sweaty Betty, and I'm already, like, my legs are sweaty. As I said, my bum is going to be just a huge sweat fleck. So that's something that you have to keep in mind, how you hold. I'm trying to not touch the paper, so I'm holding my hand a little bit higher than the paper because of that. Like in this case, I'm only touching the paper with this one finger. So there is some technique that you can keep in mind when you're doing stuff like this. And as I said, let me see if we can bring in that tree from all the way to the left that I showed you. I don't want to promise here, depending on how hot it's going to be, I will try and edit in freeze frames of hi a cute couple with their child is canoeing by, and the kid helloed me. So this is quite a big tree, which means that I want to make sure to, like, think of it, humans are very small here, right? So the tree should also represent that it's not disproportionate. So you can't have, like, I wanted to start it there because that would have been a normal tree, but obviously I had to bring the foliage a little bit lower there. So if you start doing stuff like this, then keep it consistent and make sure that it doesn't just appear in one small area of your drawing, but you take it a bit around. So if I know that I want to add more foliage here and there in the back there as well, you can spread it nicely around so there's a bit everywhere. So for this one, it has balconies that are a bit offset, so I am going to make sure to put emphasis on that because that makes the whole building a bit more interesting. There's a lot more boats here, so I'm gonna try and cheat in a couple more boats just because it's a little bit empty here. I pushed everything a bit too high. Usually I do the opposite. I leave a bunch of breathing space for the sky. Also, with the detailing of these buildings, you don't have to be completely accurate, especially when you're like losing the, like, as I go off the page, I start to lose detail. There's actually a lot more boats here. I could have brought some boats in there, but I guess this is okay now. Alright, I forgot about the crane here. Let's add some detail, not too much. It doesn't need to be perfect. And then we have a little bit of folding up like this. And technically there's another crane back here. As you can see, I don't draw the straightest line, but it's fine because I just repeat them a couple of times. This crane is sort of looking at us. So I have the tendency of wanting to stop now, so I take a look at it because I know once I start with a watercolor, the paper will start bending in weird ways and I won't be able to come back. So before I stop, I take another look and I say, okay, maybe I do need to add just a bit more lines here and there to define to define what we're working here with. And business time is watercolor time, so I put my watercolors here. You can still see it. Okay, so let us start with the blue. I still had green on the brush, which is horrible, and I should clean it, but I can't now. This is great. When I'm in nature, I just smear it on whatever is there, but now I can't really do that. Okay, so I have some blue here. I add some more water to it, and then what I do is I just start here at the top and I push out some water, and then I let it mix away as I come lower. And here I plan to paint around the crane, just because the crane is yellow and I want to play with that a bit. Once again, I take some of the blue from there, I apply generously there, and then I push out some water onto my paper, and then I just bring it everywhere as much as I can. And this water is a little bit greenish, which you can't see hopefully, but I can, and it is a bit bothersome. Okay. And this is going to be all that I do for the sky. Usually I leave in clouds, and there are clouds now that I notice it, but I can't be bothered anymore. So now I move on to the water, which is also the water is usually reflecting the blue sky, but this has a bit more, I feel like, reddishness in it. So I'm gonna take a little bit of this red, which is slightly dangerous, just because that's how you get towards more, well, that's how I do black, or if I want to do gray, is just add red to it. So I might see if I can do it more with green, just because I know there's a lot of algae in water, and you have that as well. So what I'm gonna do sort of the opposite here. Take some of this, take some of this. So this is for me experimenting, just because I'm not that good with colors, and this is also not that much color. I should have prepared a bit more color. I'm gonna be honest, it's a bit hard to work like this, so we're not gonna do this. I'm just gonna hold this here and try to work like this. If you can't see it that well, I'm sorry about that. Okay, so once again we have more of it here. Preferably I would like to mix the colors a bit together, because then it becomes more interesting, of course. And here I want to have some white, and so I want the whatever the motorboat throws up or mixes up, I want that to be separate. So let's take some more of this and this. Okay, I'm gonna bring some more water onto the paper and then slowly thin it out as I go higher and higher towards the buildings. A bit more water here as well. Thin it out and go a little bit higher. See if I can come back a little bit here and add of this purpley color here. And we are going to come back and just add a couple of waves, just a bit. I mean, I want to do it semi now because I want to get more effects like this. I hope it's visible, where it has a hard edge, but then it also mixes in a little bit. So let's see if we can, yeah, exactly, something like that. So I just like this type of effect. I don't know if you can see it, but the paper is all wobbly already here, so that is something that happens. All right, let's wait a little bit. Let's take a break. While I'm waiting for the paper to dry, there's a pretty cool building over there. It's very rotationary. That's a nice thing to draw as well, I guess. But yeah, this was something that I liked. And then there's just everybody swimming over there. Usually that's where we're swimming, where you see that building back there. That's the area that I go to swim as well. Maybe we'll still go today because it's just Even the shadow, like my shirt is fully sweaty now. Okay, ready to continue. So I still want some blues. So this building has blues and greens in it, which means that I can still bring in, oh, don't drip, damn it. Which I can still bring some of the color in here now. So I'm gonna take something that I have here already with the blues, take a bit of more red, make it a bit darker, and now I can add a bit more of these that I wanted before. Not too much. I already feel that I don't like what I'm doing here because I had a couple of nice lines there that are a little bit kaput now, but it's fine. So with watercolor, very quickly you start being okay with messing up, just because there is nothing else but messing up. At least for me, I am just constantly messing up with watercolor, so it's okay. It is what it is. It is a very good stress management tool. I feel like it forces you to just let go of things. All right, we need a blue-greenish sort of thing for the windows here. Let me see what I can do with that. So we have the green here, we have blue-green, and maybe this will work here. So I add a bit more water. So now I would also clean this out if I would have thought about bringing the tissue paper with me. But I am a genius. Of course I didn't bring tissue paper with me. Alright, so we have dark here and lighter here. So what I'm going to do is just start here and do the whole thing. And there is a bit of water here because I pressed, and I am going to add a stronger mix of blue and green here. Hopefully it will mix together like that, and then I can also add just a couple of suggestions of it being sort of like that. Usually what I do is I test the color on the other page and then I just bring it in here. I use the brush quite dry when I need to be a bit more precise, so I don't make it that wet, or wet at all in this case. And now, since I'm working with the green, I might as well add the yellow here and just mix up my green for all the foliage that I am going to use. This is also sort of a mistake. I did not want my color to be this opaque. This is not how I work with my watercolor. So I'm just going to distribute it, and probably later we come in with a very wet, or not a very wet, but a much wetter color. And by color I mean green, of course. Okay. So I'm gonna let this dry a bit, and I'm gonna add a bit more water to this green here and see what happens. So I sort of like how this tree works with the darker greens and the light greens, and there's a little bit of washing effect. So this dries relatively fast just because it was quite thick. So that's good, because then I can already start to come in with my lighter green, and then I should have this nice effect of light and dark green interplay. But for now, let's move on to the buildings, and the buildings have all sort of a beige to them. So preferably I would take all this color here and get rid of it. Now I'm just painting it on the pavement, which is not great for my brush, but okay. And then painting it a little bit on my leg as well, which is not great for my leg. So I can take some of this beige here and just mix it out. Take some white, which is mixed with blue, and just combine it there, and then we sort of have pretty much the color of the buildings here. So what I'm gonna do is just lay this down. I'm gonna wait for it to dry, and then I'm gonna come in with a darker version of this just to add that the darker spots. This should be a little bit darker than what we have on the other side, and here I'd want this preferably gone. There we go. So let's wait for this to dry, and in the meantime I can do some reds on the boat. So this boat has a bit of red to it. Let's test what we have here. I think that's good enough. I'm just gonna do as thin of a line as I can. It's also just nice to have, because everything is green and blue here, and that beige feels very much like a neutral color. You want some colors in there that pop, that being this red in this case. And the boat that is closer to us, that actually had no red in it at all, but I am going to cheat, and I am going to add a bit of red, like this here line should be red, and then above it it can be white, I don't mind. But just to give it a bit of more, it's interesting for the eye to have a different color that you can look at there. Okay, now trying to get a darker version of this beige. If I add blue, it turns green apparently, so I'm gonna add some more brown. What happens if I add some red to it? It's saturated, a little bit more blue. That's a lot of blue, not a little bit of blue. But we have a nice green, dark gray sort of thing. And this looks like that. A bit too much on the green side. This asks for steady hands and patience. Something that I do not have in abundance at all. Alright, I mixed out a bit more of the dark, but this is even darker, so I feel like I can go stronger with the red there. And then the balconies can be that color. Yeah, see that works nicely there. I might as well do the dividing lines between the different floors. So I do see a bit of like almost like blue in there, so I want to bring a bit more of this here. Let's see if that works. Not sure it will, but once again, if it ruins it, it ruins it. We do not care, because we're learning a lot and it's a lot of fun, so bleh, does not matter. Let me add a bit of orange to it, just because it's a bit too limey there. Okay, and then this one is sort of red. I want to water it up just a little bit. Oh, not this much. Crap. That is better. So especially because this is in the background, I don't want it to be super saturated, like that yellow. It's not good. So I would have liked to take away that yellow is just too strong. This is much more pleasant. And then where it's a bit in the dark, in the shadow areas, you can add a bit of red here and there, and then it's a bit more interesting. There we go. And now I return to my blue, mix it in a bit, maybe add a bit of red, not too much, just to darken it. And then this I can use as sort of a shadow area here, also under my boat here. Then a bit under this one as well. And now I'm just gonna add some of this stronger blue under my lines, just to emphasize the motion of the water. We can bring a couple in here as well, because we have ripples on both sides. And now I have the blue. I'm just gonna bring in a couple swipes here as well, emphasizing the reflectiveness here. And that's pretty much it. So I think I'm gonna call this here. So you can see I always work with a lot of areas that are not finished. We could always finish them. So I could do I want to some shadows in there. So I'm gonna bring a bit of red into this blue to make it a bit gray, or gray it up, whatever you want to call it, something like this, until I have sort of a neutral grayish thing, and I can use this as sort of a shading situation here and there. There we go, something like that. And with that, well, actually I was thinking I could, if I water this up enough, I could bring some of that in here, just so it's not too white. Some of the areas that are white right now, I'm just gonna darken them up. Okay, so here is the final urban sketchy thing of that area there. I brought a tree in, and of course everything is a little bit more zoomed in for me with a couple of boats. As you can see, there's plenty of boats moving here, and it's impossible to catch them. But yeah, what did we learn? We learned to always bring water with us, not just talk about it, but actually bring it with us. Bring tissue paper as well, because that's important. And yeah, if it's too hot, find a nice area for yourself and sketch there. Yeah. You can see the full resolution of a scan of this sketch on Patreon if you want to check it out. There's also some other goodies that you can find on Patreon, but in general, thank you very much for checking out this video. I hope you also learned something from it, and yeah, till next time, the most important thing is that you folks have a good time and keep on sketching while the weather is this nice. See you in the next video. Bye bye.